Hello and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
Our goal with the Healthy Half Hour podcast is to be a resource in your toolbox for all things diet, exercise and healthy lifestyle related.
We'll be sharing our personal insights and experiences alongside research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for over the last 12 years.
The show is brought to you by Sunnyside Honey Pot, all things honey related. So if you want to check out things that we make from our bees, their wax and their honey, you go to sunnysidehoneypot.com, and also please feel free to visit the healthyhalfhourpodcast.com as well.
And without further ado, let's get on to today's show.
Yes, we know it's been a while since we've been on air, but
About a month.
I think everybody knows that our summers are crammed full with outdoor activities, gardening and mowing and tending to bees. So we've just had a lot going on, I guess.
Well, it's always a busy time of year getting, like we said before, getting stuff going. I mean, aside from a bit of weeding and tying tomato plants up at the minute, the garden's pretty self-sustaining right now. Just make sure it's watered for a while. And we had a bit of a shaky start. We had some super windy weather in June time, and then it went really cool again. Then it warmed up again, and then it was just kind of dry. And then over the last couple of weeks, it's just been like super hot with thunderstorms rolling through. And every time we get a hot day and then a thunderstorm, the day after it's hot, yeah, the humidity climbs, but it's almost like somebody puts the garden on steroids. Stuff just bounces up and things start to bloom. So yeah, things are really moving on well. And
so that's the garden and me that's been on steroids then.
Pretty much, yeah. So we...
Well, there is a story behind that, not the steroids that you're probably thinking about, because I had we've had bees, 4 years now, is it?
Yeah.
And I've probably been stung once, maybe twice in that last 4 years, but the last week and a half, I kind of got stung twice, once in the face. So I looked like the Elephant Man because my nose swelled up and left-hand side of my face swelled up. And then that dissipated after about 2 days, which was fine. And then everybody on social media is like, oh, we need to see photos. So they were totally sympathetic to my plight. Obviously, they just wanted to laugh. But then I got a sting. Actually, ironically, we were rolling some balls of wax off the hives just over a week ago, this Sunday just gone, and there was actually a dead bee and a sting in the wax, and it actually stung me on the hand, and my hand blew up I don't know, almost 2-3 times the size. And that was on the Sunday, so I took my wedding ring off and my engagement ring off just in case I swelled up too much. And then Monday morning you looked at it and said, yeah, basically get to the emergency, because that's not
Well, it was swelling up from your elbow down. It's like you got a big washing up glove on or something full of water. But ironically, you got stung on your foot on the same day.
Nothing.
One got behind the strap on your sandal as we were over there. And like I say, we just assumed there was something in the sting, or the bee had been dead for a little while and it was kind of gone off, or there was a bit of something, infection got in there as well. So that's kind of what set the ball rolling. And
so they gave me steroids for the swelling and then an antibiotic because the infection had spread kind of up onto my bicep. So it was 2/3 of the way up my arm. So I had to take 2 lots of drugs. But the pharmacist did say that probably reacted so badly because it was in such quick succession as well from the one that stung me on my face. So who knows?
Well, you don't know exactly.
Immune system's not happy.
No, and like you say, with the one on your foot, weird what one did and one didn't. But yeah, I mean, after winter, we ended up with 1 hive loss out of 3, and then we decided to buy another nucleus of bees, which is basically a small bee colony. So you can buy that in a box and then just transfer it to your bee yard when you get here. So we did that, and then last week we were going to requeen another hive, a small hive that we got, because that really wasn't doing a lot. And yeah, she basically, I don't know, I said to Karen, we're not in the habit of keeping pet bees. I want them to actually do something, again, make the hives nice and strong, because otherwise they don't get through the winters. So we decided to requeen her. So we got a friend of ours was rearing some queens, and she got one that had been on a mating flight and successful, and she was laying. So I went down there, picked her up this time last week on a Monday evening, and then put her into the hive. And then went back on Tuesday, and they were balling all over her, which means basically there's like a ball of bees, and she's in the middle. She got out the little cage a bit quick because there's kind of an introduction period, and they were trying to kill her. That's what they'll do with balling her. They'll overheat her. So I basically managed to fish her out, put her back in a cage, and then I was in the house, and it was about supper time on Tuesday, and then Karen came, a phone call, and she came up with a phone and said, oh, you talk to her. And a lady locally, well, a couple few miles away in the next town along, said that her daughter-in-law had got a swarm of bees in the backyard in a tree and didn't know what to do with them. So I said to Karen, it was like the IKEA advert, start the car. So I put some equipment together, put a temporary box together with 3 frames in, and went and brushed 90% of them into the box, and luckily we found out the day after we got the queen as well.
Needless to say, I stayed as far away as possible on the deck, away from the tree with the bees in it.
So we brought them home and then set them up in a box, and lo and behold, all of a sudden now we've got 5 hives. And so yes, we've just been collecting bees, and then we went away for Canada Day celebrations to a friend's cabin on the lake. Didn't really want to leave the queen in the house all on her own for like a day and a bit, but we didn't stay overnight. So I left her some honey on the cage and some water, and lo and behold, we got home there. So I put her back in Thursday morning because she put a candy in the end of the cage, so when they eat through like the marshmallow, they have the introduction. And I went back in Friday, and they'd still not got out of the cage, so I ended up helping her out, and everybody seemed happy, and we went in there Saturday, and she's made friends, and we're all good. And so yeah, the bees are booming at the minute, and honey's being collected, the clover's out, and yeah, so that's pretty much
full throttle.
Yeah, pretty much full on now. And like I say, it's a short season for honey capture, so we've basically got about another 5 weeks worth till the middle of August, and we'll see what we get in that period of time. But
now my sea buckthorn will be ready for like harvesting then. So everything happens all at once.
Yep. So it's go for the next little while. So hopefully we'll throw some more podcasts out there. Hopefully we're not boring you too much, or you may have just skipped forward a little bit. But one thing we wanted to cover basically again is kind of the fasting thing. And again, we did the potato diet a couple of weeks ago, which Karen is now back on, and you can tell them the reason.
Well, the reason being is that being on antibiotics and steroids for best part of a week, my gut microbiome is going to be pretty trashed right now. So I think if you can remember listening, if you did listen to the Potato Hack podcast, then the one thing with the build-up of resistant starch in the cold potatoes, and actually helps to restore some of that gut microbiome. So it's just a bit of a way to fast, but also just to clean things back up and then restore a bit of balance. So that's my reason for being on it at the minute. So we're just going to have like 3 or 4 days just to normalize things again.
Yeah, and again, with the fasting, we have covered it in previous podcasts, but things have moved on, and we sometimes get questions on social media, and we really just wanted to cover the different types. Does it work for you? Will it work for you? And kind of how to kind of get it to fit into your lifestyle, and just more of a trial and error of kind of what it'll do for you, and in the kind of way you can do it. So if that makes any sense, hopefully. So the definition of fasting is any meal timing intervention or approach that alternates periods of eating and extended fasting. Extended fasting is very what's the word I'm looking for? is very subjective. So again, what you might think of as an extended period of fasting, somebody else may not. We're going to talk about time and everything and what happens in the body over that period of time. Because again, sometimes people do fasting and they don't do it long enough to kind of get those beneficial effects. So really there's kind of 6 types of fasting. So again, different sorts, different ways of doing it. So there's time restricted feeding, which a lot of people tend to start with and is like really sustainable over a long period of time. The most popular one is 16-8. So with time restricted eating, you will not eat for 16 hours. You'll just have kind of water. And the other 8 hours, that's when your feeding window is. In that feeding window, remember, you are trying to eat all your daily calories in an 8-hour window. So really the 16-8 stops your snacking, because again, those 16 hours when you're not eating tend to be more in the evening time. Because again, if you have your breakfast at 10 a.m. and your supper will be at 6 p.m. So again, in that period of time, you won't be eating between 6 at night and 10 in the morning, or drinking coffee or, well, coffee with cream or sugar or anything else, or tea with cream or sugar, because again, you don't want to set the process going. Coffee and teas in themselves are pretty inert, so you can have smaller amounts of those. Sometimes, again, with this one, people start and they'll do a 14-10 and then move up to a 15-9. So again, it depends what happens and what kind of works for you. So again, one of the reasons kind of do it to 16 hours, because what happens in the body, you'll start to convert glucose up until about 6 hours. And then after that 6-hour period, normally the glucose conversion from what you've eaten is kind of finished. After that, you'll go into gluconeogenesis, which is kind of turning proteins into sugars. So that normally happens between kind of the 2-hour window and the 9-hour window. So there's an overlap with the glucose. So fatty oxidation, really, when you start to utilize body fats for fuel, doesn't really happen until about 12 hours after you've finished eating. So if you're kind of just doing like the regular thing, what most people do is they'll probably have their supper at 7 at night, or they'll have wine or some snacks or something at 8 and 9 at night, and then they're getting up at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning and having breakfast. It's only really an 11-hour window, so you never actually get fully into that fat burning process, because again, you're just not giving the body enough time to work with the substrates it's got, and then for the cells to start to want to use the fat. So if you do the 16-8, you've kind of got a 4-hour window every day where your body's going to tend to be in more that fatty acid oxidization, fatty acid metabolization period, where you're actually going to want to use it. So next, we're going to kind of look at periodic fasting. Periodic fasting, there's a few different ways of doing it. So one of the most popular ones, again, is the 24-hour water fast. So that means on alternating days as well. So you'll eat a regular supper, regular food on Monday. You will eat nothing on Tuesday, just have water. You'll eat on Wednesday, nothing Thursday. So again, that process of every other day. So again, people do that for weeks and months on end, and they get on perfectly well with it. Some people just use it as a protocol, just again to lose some weight. And again, it's up to you, whatever you want, how you want to do that. And it's just another way of doing it. Some people don't like the 24 hours. Some people love the 24 hours and get on really well with it. So again, in that time, you've got way more time, a good 24 hours really, of once you start into that fasting. So you've got way more time for that fat metabolization and fatty oxidation burning. So intermittent energy restriction is the next one. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a low calorie diet, or 25% of your calories for that day off. So rather than starving yourself for a day, starving's the right word, and just having water, you would eat just a low calorie diet. Again, one of the kind of similar to that is the protein sparing modified fast. It's a little more than 25%. It's probably about 30-40% of your diet, but mostly protein. So again, that's trying to stave off that muscle loss. Especially if you're a little older, you can get sarcopenia, which again, you start to end up losing muscle tissue. So again, that's one way of doing it as well. So that kind of staves off those hunger pangs. And the tendency is more with that, it tends to be more, again, just like veggies and things like that. So not so much fats or proteins or like starchy carbs. So just something to keep you ticking over. The next one is kind of a 5-2. So what you'll do for the 5-2 is you'll eat normally for 5 days and then have a 2-day break. So you'll fast for 48 hours and then you'll cycle back. You'll eat normal. So again, it's just a different way of doing it. If 48-hour fasting is something that you don't mind doing, that's just another way of doing it. Again, we're going to talk about it in a bit some more, but whatever kind of fits into your week, you can throw in anything when you want, sweetheart. You just sit and chewing your potatoes again.
Well, I can't get away with edgeways. You're just on a roll.
Then I'll carry on rolling. So the next one is your fast mimicking diet. So what you do then is for like 5 days in a row, you would eat like very low calorie. So again, maybe the protein sparing modified fast or something around that kind of 30% mark. And you'd probably just do that once a month. It's kind of a body reset. And again, like we said on the last one, I did a full week of water fasting, so like for 72 hours, so 5 days. Yeah, it's okay, but I think the doing the lower calorie 30% thing just kind of helps you through it. It gets a little gnarly at some point, so yeah, that's kind of easier to kind of swallow if you want to kind of put it that way. And so basically, really with fasting, what is it? Obviously, it's not eating, but not eating is doing things to your body. So really, it's an evolutionary mechanism. It's a natural kind of defense as well, which kind of helps us reset our system. It kind of gained, obviously it's evolutionary, so humans have been doing it for years, but it kind of gained attention in the 1930s and 1940s when they were kind of doing some experiments on, again, rat experiments, mice experiments, and they were finding out that the ones that they calorically restricted actually live longer. So again, that life extension research kind of picked up a little bit, and it was kind of ebbing and flowing and up and down. Then in 2003, a scientist called Mark Mattson did a study, which I'll put a link to in the show notes. And basically what they did is they got 4 rodent model groups. And with the 4 groups, what they did is group 1, they could eat what they wanted, so they just got food available all the time. So what they did in group 2 is they did intermittent fasting. They did the old alternating day method. So basically they ate one day, didn't eat the next day. With the group 3, they've just put them on a low calorie diet. So they restricted their calories by 35%. And then on group 4, the group 4 ate the same amount of calories as the intermittent fasting group did. So they did an intermittent fast. They just worked out how were the caloric intake of what the rats were doing on the intermittent day fasting and then just fed that the same amount just to see what happens, but on a daily basis. When they did it, they measured blood glucose, insulin, and also neuronal survival. Neuronal survival is kind of in your brain, kind of how the neurons, because obviously you turn over brain cells, and they were looking at when you were starving how many brain cells you were turning over or retaining, and kind of having a look at that as well. So what happened? Well, the intermittent fasting lot basically lost a lot of weight. The next ones were the low calorie diet lot. The next ones that we lost the most amount of weight were the ones that ate the same amount of calories as the intermittent fasters, so the paired feeders. And the last ones that obviously didn't lose any weight, they could eat what they want. This really spiked people's interest in 2003, and then way more studies started to come. And obviously since then, there's lots of different things, fast mimicking diet. It's obviously become quite popular. So actually, not eating has been more popular than eating recently. Again, through more for weight loss. And again, like Karen's been doing the low calorie thing with the potato, just to kind of have a little bit of a reset.
And it helps to be busy. If you're going to do intermittent fasting, I mean, I've spent all day trying to catch up on accounts, and it helps if you've got something to take your mind off it. And right now, unfortunately, people who, in the wake of COVID, and might have like the luxury of staying at home and getting paid to stay at home, get bored, and unfortunately, people are actually gaining weight in the COVID weight. But if you're actually keeping yourself busy and you've got something to occupy your mind, I mean, I had a couple of pieces of potato this morning, but then what time is it now? It's nearly 5 p.m. in the afternoon, early evening, and I've just grabbed some potatoes, but I've just been swamped busy at my computer. So Like you say, you can fast easier than you think.
Yeah, and again, that we're going to talk about just going over kind of getting started, but just wanted to kind of list the advantages again from a metabolic point of view and from a systemic point of view with the body. So obviously, greater weight loss is one of the things again that's obviously attracts people because, and like I say to people, it's easy weight loss. The effort is pretty much zero. You've not got to prep any food. You've not got to do anything special. Just don't eat, drink water, maybe take some salt on board if you need to. Obviously, it's better for fat mobilization and fat oxidization, like we said earlier on, because you get into that period of time now where your body will actually respond. It also lowers blood glucose level and normalizes insulin levels. Again, increases insulin sensitivity as well. Because, again, people eating constantly, your body's constantly getting that signal to eat. And those signals, again, through blood sugar and insulin can kind of lead to weight gain that you, again, even though you're maybe not eating as much as what you think, you're still sending the body those signals. It does lower blood pressure. Again, there's less load on the body, less stress on the body, which again can really help. There's an improved metabolic flexibility. What metabolic flexibility is your body's ability to switch from being a fat burner to a sugar burner and vice versa. So again, if you are not eating for a while, the more you do it, the quicker your body will actually flip over. I find that with what we were doing with fasting originally, I mean, when I was doing longer water fasts, I could tell when I got into ketosis, because that's basically what you're doing. You're kind of doing a ketogenic diet by not eating, because ketogenic diets, all they do is they mimic fasting thing, because you're just giving your body high amounts of fat. So I literally, the first time I did a longer water fast, it was like 2.5 days before I really kicked into ketosis, and you can feel the change in the body. And after a couple of them, it was like 36 hours. It was a day and a half. And my body, again, that metabolic flexibility had already started to get ingrained in the body. And the body had remembered what it was kind of genetically able to do. And it just made it a quicker transition. When you go to the doctor, you'll have better blood work numbers. So your cholesterol will lower, your triglycerides will lower. You'll have lower inflammation. Again, we've said before on previous podcasts, your biggest interaction with the outside world is what you eat. So from an inflammatory point of view and from an immune point of view as well, obviously the less you're putting in there, the less your body's got to deal with. So again, all these advantages can come. And also, again, which is like they were studying in the 30s and 40s, longer life, longer health span. And that's what the podcast is all about. It's not necessarily living exponentially longer, but having a longer health span where you're healthier, can do more things as you get into life. So again, part of the title of the podcast, kind of finding your niche. You may have to, obviously there's lots of different ways of doing the fasting, and like we've said initially, it's kind of finding what works for you and what works for your lifestyle. I mean, if you're on rolling shifts and things, or you only work a couple of days a week, or you're a stay-at-home mom, then again, you're always going to be different. Everybody's thing is going to be different to their buy-in. A couple of other things, again, if you've got a really high stressful job, or you've got adrenal fatigue, or you've got thyroid problems, again, you're going to be slightly different to what other people do. If you've got a very high amount of body fat to lose, then you'll be probably doing more fasting, because again, you've got that energy stored up that you can utilize as energy in the day. If you're only like 15% body fat, or you're very slender and lean naturally, then you're not doing it for weight loss, so you probably need to look at it slightly differently. But again, because you haven't got that fat store to go on, but the benefits of not eating consistently will be different for you, because again, you'll probably get different health benefits to people that want to lose weight. So one of the ways not to do it really is to start eating at 2:00 in the afternoon and then finish eating at 10:00 at night. Because really going to bed on an emptier stomach is better for you and you'll sleep better. Some people have circadian rhythm problems. So when we say that, they go to bed and they can't get to sleep. They lay in bed till 2 a.m. So really, if you can try and eat your food load again, more mid-afternoon for the bigger meal or lunchtime, if you can. Again, if you work until 6 at night and then you come home and have your supper, then it is what it is. But if you can maybe have a bigger breakfast before you leave and then taper your meals down and go the other way. So really, you want to avoid eating kind of 4 hours before bedtime, because again, that's going to be better for you and it's going to help you out. One thing, again, I'll always tell people is time of year, especially where we are here, I tend to try to do longer fasts if I'm going to do any, just for that fasting reset, more in the summertime, because you're going to feel cold. It's really surprising. We've sat in the house and it's been like 22 degrees in the house, and I'm sat there with sweatpants on and a sweat top if I've not eaten for 2 days, because literally I'm very cold, because my metabolism is now starting to kind of shut things down a little bit, and heat generation is one of them, because again, you're trying to keep your core temperature as high as you can, but also the body's trying to conserve calories. So again, just be aware of these things and things that can happen when you actually start to do fasts. So just to kind of finish up, I was going to kind of do some mechanisms, again, what are responsible for these health changes. Again, fat oxidation, metabolic switching, which is that switching from burning fat to sugar and sugar to fat. Lower hunger levels too. It'll reset your ghrelin, leptin levels. Obviously lower insulin. Ketones, like we say, because it is really the ketogenic diet. This is what we're doing. Reactive oxygen production is going to lower, as is oxidative stress, again, because we've lost that interaction with food all the time and the immune system's doing less work. Hormesis, we did a podcast on hormesis a long time ago. And what hormesis is just a little bit of stress. So it's like if, for example, if you go to the gym for 45 minutes and do a workout, you're going to end up with some sore muscles, and afterwards your body's going to repair them. So that's a hormetic stressor, because it's a small stress that your body can respond to and then make you better for it. So if you run a marathon, basically you'll pretty much crush yourself for about 20 days afterwards. Marathon running is not a hormetic stress. Basically, it's a stress overload, so your body takes a long time to recover for it. So small amounts of stress that your body responds good to is hormetic stress, and you'll get that great response. Autophagy, cell cleanup. There's a lot of different things that can cause or make the cells do a cleanup process. Exercise, again, being one of them. But again, it's one of the things one of the mechanisms in fasting that just kind of helps make your body feel better. It slows the aging process a little bit. Again, you've got some different factors in there: insulin growth factor, IGF, the mTOR pathway, which again is protein metabolization. We're not going to go into a lot of this one, and AMPK processes. I think Karen's talked about those before. So circadian genes as well, again, aligning with your dark light cycle, so getting those genes working and trying to get yourself aligned up. And again, sleep is huge. So if you can do things like the intermittent fasting that may help you with your sleep process, then again, why not jump in and give it a go?
Sleep's something that I think we should revisit pretty soon. Yeah, to be honest, it's key to overall health, weight loss, and people really don't value how important it is.
No, and that's it's all part and parcel of. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was saying to them, they wanted to lose weight, and they kind of come at me with the diet and exercise thing, and again, just explaining that whole sphere of it's everything involved in, again, stress, sleep, the whole 9 yards. Everything plays its part, and with some people more than others. So again, with the fasting thing, if it's something that interests you, jump in and give it a go. By all means, you can shoot us some questions. There's a ton of stuff out there on the internet, and again, I probably ended up covering most of the stuff.
I told you I couldn't get a word in edgeways.
Just to again,
eating potatoes.
Just to go over everything, and again, just to kind of hopefully clear things up about which sort of fasting may be good for you. But I would just say look at your situation, look at your health history, look at what your goals are, look at if you obviously want to lose weight, you've got circadian problems, you've got gut dysbiosis and you kind of need to reset some stuff, you've got insulin problems, blood sugar problems and all the rest of it. Just start somewhere and give it a go and see if it kind of, again, it's not necessarily the magic elixir, but hopefully it will help you on your path to health and wellness.
I'd say if you've never tried it, then probably the time-restricted eating is the easiest one to begin with, just because you're just eating the same calories all within that small window of time. And it might be whether you work shifts or whatever, or regular hours, it could be the easiest option, and just so that you can introduce yourself to actually a type of fasting and eating within a certain window may be the most easiest to break yourself into it if you've never done it before.
And that's the lowest hanging fruit, really. I mean, to do that 16-8, and you'd be surprised. I've seen people not even change what they're eating in their diet and still lose weight. If weight loss is your goal, still lose weight doing the 16-8, because like I say, it naturally cuts your calories down, because a lot of times people don't want to eat in that as much as they normally would in that 8-hour window, and it cuts a lot of that snacking out as well. And sometimes people in that 8-hour window will just eat 2 meals a day, 2 larger meals, granted, but again, it's that opportunity to again stop the snacking because you're just having water in between time. So with again the 24-hour fasting, one thing the overriding thing is it's okay to be hungry. And then people, I feel really terrible, and especially like with 48-hour fasting, you'll start to feel really like hungry after the first day, but you'll be surprised on the start of day 2, you kind of forgot about it. The body will keep sending the signal that you're hungry, I need to eat. And after a while, the body just says, well, I don't even know why I'm bothering sending this signal anymore, because they're ignoring me. So your body will actually stop sending it. And over time, the hormone responsible is called ghrelin, and people get ghrelin resistant. So your body has to produce more ghrelin to tell you that you're hungry. So again, it's one of these things that kind of reset hormonally in the system to actually tell you that you're not hungry every 10 minutes, which you're not really. But sometimes, again, hunger and habits or boredom can sometimes cross over each other. So remember, it is okay to be hungry, and it's not going to be the death of you per se. And like we always say, if you're doing fasting and you feel like garbage and you feel like you're sick, or you just don't feel well, or you feel shaky, especially if you do have blood sugar regulations, eat something. And that's the easiest way out of it, is just eat something small, possibly if you're really feeling shaky, something sugary, and then kind of have a little bit of a reset and then give it another go. And your body second time, third time, fourth time around will have learned kind of the nuances of this, and those ancient mechanisms that are deep in there somewhere in those cells in your body will come back out, and hopefully you'll flourish and you'll get some great results from it like we have. So hopefully it's been helpful and you're not bored of me yaddering on, and I'll promise I'll let Karen talk more next time when she gets rid of a mouthful of potatoes. Mm-hmm. So until the next podcast, see you then.
That's all we have time for today, but we do hope that you join us on our next show. If you'd like to contribute to an upcoming episode with a topic, a question, or even if you'd like to be a guest on our show, then shoot us an email to questions@healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, or you can actually leave us a message on our Facebook or Instagram pages. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by Sunnyside Honeypot and 7dayshred.com. If you like the show, tell your friends, and if you didn't, tell us and we'll work on it for you. Thanks again for listening.